Back with more from Fox and Friends. You know, if we were Vapid Media, this segment would be called something like Fox and Friendly Fire or something equally dumb, but it's not. All right, let's get right to it here. This is from, I believe, Christmas Eve, December 24th, Fox and Friends. Roll that videotape here.
Criticism is that he says that it's the one thing that can keep our kids safe. It's the one thing. And that's been roundly criticized by a number of individuals because it's not the one thing that can keep our kids safe. He goes on to talk about Columbine at certain situations. And,
right,
and remember,
let's stop. This is reacting to Wayne LaPierre on Meet the Press. And by the way, is that what you've been hearing? Really? Like, oh, it's not the one thing. No, I got to. I mean, it's not the criticism I've been hearing. In fact, that's not even the criticism that I've been hearing a lot on Fox and Friends. I've been hearing, it's going to cost too much money, or well, they had guards at Columbine, or I'll be honest with you. I mean, really, well, it's not the one thing that he's just being too literal. Haven't actually heard that argument until now, as a matter of fact. All right, let's keep listening.
Columbine had an armed guard, so it's not the one thing to protect our kids. It's perhaps one of many things.
But you also wonder if it's the head of the NRA, is he going to come out with a position that is a broader reaching or multi-pronged approach? He's the head of the NRA, so that is going to be his focus on this, and that's his thinking.
Right.
Is the one thing from the NRA's point of view can be more guns.
He's got paid members.
That's a great point, Rick. I mean, I think as parents, it's really, you're hamstrung on this issue because obviously you want your kids to go to school every day and be safe or anywhere that they go, whether it's a shopping mall or a movie theater. But I'm not sure that we're to that point as parents. And Clayton, I know that you and I talked about this in the commercial break. Are we at a point where we're parents, where we're comfortable with that this is just part of our culture now, that our kids are going to grow up knowing that to be safe, they have to have armed people around them? It's kind of the cart before the horse in a way.
Because don't you... You know what would be awesome? Again, just thinking out loud here. Maybe if you're going to have a conversation about parents and firearms, I don't know, maybe have a gun-owning parent sitting there at the couch. Maybe to provide some perspective. Because here's the thing. You know, I don't know where this anchor lives. It's somewhere in the tri-state area, I'm sure. So let's say the Northeast. She may not be aware of the fact. Again, there's a lot of, I think, well-intentioned, well-meaning people talking here, but they're talking about things that they don't really know a lot about, and we're not getting a perspective that I think is frankly very common outside of the media epicenters of New York and L.A. and even D.C. now, because there are millions of parents out there who are comfortable with the idea of their kids being raised in a world in which yes, you are safer when there are good guys with firearms around. In fact, I'm glad that we have those millions of parents, because you know how we raise good guys and gals who carry firearms to protect other people? Yeah, they don't magically come to this thing. I mean, it can happen. They can, as an adult, decide on their own, hey, you know what, I'd like to be a police officer. But a lot of this is instilled character, instilled in children. So, yeah. There actually are parents who've had this conversation and are kind of, again, wondering what's taken everybody else so long to start talking about things like this. Now, are we to a point in our society where we're really comfortable with the idea of armed guards in every one of our children's schools? You know what? As I said earlier, that's already the reality in about a third of our schools. The school security chief in Camden, New Jersey. Camden, nobody wants to have to raise their kids in Camden, New Jersey. All right, nobody does. And think of the fact that there are kids being raised in Camden, New Jersey, and they deserve to be safe too from the gang violence that plagues that community. And the head of the school security system there said, yeah, I would love to have armed guards. They have guards in every one of Camden's schools. They're just not armed. So there are armed guards in about a third of our nation's schools. How many school systems have unarmed guards? We talk about the cost. $5 billion. Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, maybe that $5 billion goes down because you don't actually have to hire people. You just have to give them training so that they can carry a firearm on duty. And, you know, again, if these anchors here were on board with the idea, or if they were even really, truly open to the idea, they would see that as a good thing. But instead, you know that they would immediately find another objection. Well, $3 billion, Cam. $3 billion is still a lot of money. So they say we want to have the conversation, but it's not much of a conversation. All right, let's keep listening.
Really wanted, I mean, I don't know. Shouldn't we try to be a less violent society first before we start saying that everyone, you know, it's a tough question.
Is this what you're saying? Because you take your kids to school and you walk in holding their little hand in the morning, you walk in, and of course, yes, you want them to be safe, but is it the thing that you want them to see walking by an armed guard I understand what you're saying. You want them to be safe, but is it this notion of, is this where we are now as a society, that they have to walk past an armed guard?
And I know people will say, well, maybe it would be concealed, so that the kids will not actually see the gun. I get all of that, but it's still a cultural question for me.
I think that makes a difference. I remember a point in my life when I first saw guns in public on guards out in some sort of a public place, and I was probably 18 or 19 years old. It was in another country, and at first I was very uncomfortable with it. Now, you know, we go around and it's something we all see all the time and you're comfortable, but at what age do you want that to come into your consciousness? Is it at 18 or as an adult, or is it something at 5 and 6 that you want to be having your kids see that?
This may be happening.
Let's stop there. See, and this is interesting from a parental perspective, but I have to say very one-sided. They're leaving a lot out. I mean, first of all, I'm not even sure I understand the idea of, you know, waiting until you're 18 or 19 to let people in on the secret that we have good people with guns on them out there to protect and serve the community. That seems like a weird thing, actually, to keep secret from kids. I would go ahead and let them know that pretty early on, actually. You know, again, going back to the idea of, does it suck on some level that a lot of us are now saying, yeah, I want my kids to be safe, and that's the best way to keep my kids safe. Yeah, it does. But again, we already have armed security in about a third of our schools. So a lot of parents around the country have already had to have that conversation. And they're not all bad schools in bad neighborhoods. A lot of them are really, really good schools in really, really good neighborhoods. And they, too, have armed security. Not because they're concerned about gang violence, not because they're, you know, worried about stopping student riots. Because the school can afford it, the parents want it, and the reason why they want it is because it works. And I got to tell you, I have not heard that in any of these conversations that we've been seeing here on Fox. All right, let's listen to a little bit more.
More quickly than we think. If you listen to Asa Hutchinson, he's a former congressman. He's going to head up the NRA's effort on this issue specifically, and he was on the Sunday talk shows as well talking about this. Listen.
Let's compare this back to the Federal Air Marshal Program on airplanes. There was intense debate that on airplanes, guns have no place. And yet we have a Federal Air Marshal Program that I helped to oversee in which has provided a deterrent. It has increased the safety of the airlines. And it's not like it's an armed camp when you go on the airlines. It's a very discreet use of armed guards that has a presence there to protect America.
And, of course, the cost. There's a cost issue.
Well, not to mention, yeah, schools are in a budget crunch to begin with.
Yeah, but he's also suggesting that it's a volunteer force of their 4.3 million members. So they're talking about because it would be
whoa. Where did that even come from? I got to tell you, I mean, if that were the case, I'd like to think I would have broken that news here on NRA News. No, that's not what Wayne LaPierre said. I don't think that's what Asa Hutchinson said. Now, there may be people among the NRA's 4.3 million members who are the type of folks that Wayne talked about. You know, active duty, retired military, active duty, retired law enforcement, active duty firefighters, first responders, people who would have the background, who would be able to undergo the training. But no, I got to tell you, like, I don't even think I'd qualify. So, again, I'm not sure. And again, this is from news anchors here. All right, let's keep listening.
Such a cost. He's also suggesting that this could be a volunteer.
For people who've retired.
For people who've retired.
Police officers who've
Right.
retired, yeah.
Right.
Most of the times, though, when they take those jobs, they are actually paid, you know, once they're retired. So I don't know, you know, would we get a whole volunteer army, so to speak, of retired people who would do this gratis?
Yeah.
Not sure about that. So Wayne LaPierre...
I mean, again, let's not even try. Can't we just try to be a less violent society first? That's what she said. Can't we just, you know what? Why don't we try that? And while we're trying, let's go ahead with the armed security. All right, let's just try both. We'll call it a multifaceted approach. I believe that's the technical term for it. Well, will these people really do it for free? If anybody from Fox is watching right now, I'm going to recommend a fantastic guest for you. It's not me, by the way. Karen Bartuch. She's with the Women's Tactical Association. She's a mother. She's a police officer. She is a trainer, law enforcement instructor. She actually trains law enforcement on how to respond to active shooter scenarios. And you know what she told me? She told me that there are a lot of cops out there who would volunteer their time. You're right. There are a lot of cops who, when they get off of work, they work a second job. Or they'll work overtime. But there are a lot of cops who would give up a few hours a day, a few hours a week, whatever they could. And if we're gonna, as long as we're just in the mood to try things, let's try this too. All right, let's keep listening.
Continued on his talking points on the Sunday talk shows. And in this case, he blamed the media for so much attention on just the one issue of the Connecticut shootings. Remember, there's a lot of talk about mental illness as well and what may have sparked this young man to go on this rampage. Well, he thinks that the media is only looking at one part of the issue.
I know there's a media machine in this country that wants to blame guns every time something happens. I know there's an anti-Second Amendment industry in this town. I know there are political elites that for 20 years always try to say it's because Americans own guns. I'm telling you what I think will make people safe and what every mom and dad will make them feel better when they drop their kid off at school in January is if we have a police officer in that school, a good guy, that if some horrible monster tries to do something, they'll be there to protect them.
He talks about the media machine and pointing the finger at the media again on all of this. And that was sort of one of the things that came out of the press conference on Friday, that he, instead of talking about guns and the need for some sort of assault weapons ban in this country, which is what Police Commissioner Ray Kelly was disappointed in with the press conference. There was no mention of assault weapons.
All right, stop for a second. This is the second time, by the way, this guy's brought up Ray Kelly, the New York Police Commissioner, without letting people know that his boss is the head of Mayors Against Illegal Guns. I mean, goodness gracious. You don't think that's important to the story when you're going to reference this anecdote? Ray Kelly, the police commissioner of the New York Police Department, was disappointed that Wayne LaPierre didn't come out and say, you know what, I think we should go ahead and ban semi-automatic rifles. I mean, honestly, that's ridiculous. I'm still stunned that the guy brought it up once, much less twice, without bringing up the fact that Ray Kelly works for the head of Mayors Against Illegal Guns. All right, let's keep listening.
And I would say this. I mean, he was hypocritical in his comments because he was saying that the one thing that we can do is this, to keep our kids safe. And the NRA, they've lobbied on behalf of keeping that database out of letting people know and authorities know that someone's amassing assault weapons. This is what happened.
What? What are you talking about? The NRA kept people out of this database to let people know they're amassing assault weapons. What database are you talking about? Well, we don't have one. Is that what you're saying? That you want to have a database of what? Of every gun owner in this country? All 90 million of them? Good luck with that. Really, no. Good luck with that. You got to try to get all 300 million firearms registered as well? I mean, there are some states that have gun registration. Amazingly enough, it has not solved their crime problem. It's the darndest thing. The criminals just don't obey that law any more than they obey the laws against rape and armed robbery and drive-by shootings. All right, let's keep listening.
In Colorado, if they were aware and they had that database in place that this guy was amassing all of these assault weapons, the Aurora, Colorado shootings may not have happened. Not because there wasn't an armed guard at the movie theater, but because the police might have known and been able to keep their eye on this guy. They could have looked at his records, see that he was troubled at school, see that he had some issues, see that neighbors were complaining about him. All of that could have led to protecting people in Colorado.
Well, and I think...
Time out again. Okay, so the one missing thing was that there wasn't a gun registry that if somebody purchased more than one gun in a month, let's say, the gun control advocates say like one gun a month laws. So if somebody purchases more than one gun a month, that sends a red flag, and law enforcement, immediately starts investigating. Is that what he thinks this is gonna that's what's gonna happen? That's not what is going to happen. All right, let me clue you in on our criminal justice system and the work of our law enforcement officers right now. Let's say you've got a guy who's a violent felon who gets out on parole and he violates his parole. Now, you'd think that would be a higher priority than, let's say, investigating somebody who bought 2 guns in a month, right? So if we're not sending out the all points bulletin for the guy who bought 2 guns in a month, we're also not sending out the all points bulletin for this violent felon who got out, has committed another crime, violated his parole. You know what? They'll put out a warrant for his arrest, and the next time they see him, they'll go pick him up. Nobody takes any great steps or great pains to go do this. In Oakland, California, the police department have said, if you're burgled, like if you come home and your stuff's not there, don't call us. Don't have time. Don't have time to come out and look for your stuff. I mean, go make a report. You're not going to have teams of officers running around, looking for dumpsters for your stuff. It doesn't happen. All right? So the idea that, well, if we only had this database, then, the purchase of multiple firearms may have raised a red flag, and that could have triggered a massive investigation where people could have gone out and talked to the neighbors. That's crap. I mean, that is delusional. I'm sorry. That is just not going to happen. And it's a very unserious thought, and this is a very serious subject, and we don't have time to be unserious about this. All right, let's be honest here. The best that a database of semi-automatic gun owners is going to do is to confirm after a crime has been committed, yep, he was a legal gun owner, or nope, that gun got stolen. That's it. All right? The COBA system in New York State didn't solve a single crime in the, 9 years it was in existence. So they got rid of it. The idea of, ballistic imaging, microstamping, all of these, wonderful tools that the gun control advocates promise will somehow prevent crime, they don't. They don't. Now, here's the thing. This anchor says, well, if we had the gun database, that would have been the thing that would have set off the alarm bells. What about all of the other things the fact that he was seen a psychiatrist, all right? The fact that people at school said he's really creepy, we don't like him. Mental health authorities were aware of this guy in Colorado. How does this get back to the idea of a gun database being necessary? All right, let's keep listening.
I think that the broader point is that this is going to have to be done with a multifaceted approach. It can't be a one idea solution. But the one thing that I want to make sure happens in this that I still think is a bit disturbing, we are so fresh off of this massacre that happened a week and a half ago, and we're already in this conversation without remembering the families of these 26 people who lost their lives. And I think that has to stay, especially we're on Christmas Eve here, and there are these families here in Connecticut that are dealing with this, not the families just who lost their loved ones, but the entire community. And to already be having this conversation and not keeping those people in mind, I think that has to stay in the forefront of our minds, and especially the families right here in this season.
Yeah, it is a great point. It's a great point, and again, a perfect example of the media talking the talk and not walking the walk. All right, you've seen we showed the pictures of the hordes of photographers just encircling mourners, people who were legitimately just trying to grieve. They didn't want the press there. And so for a member of the media to say, hey, you know what, let's keep the community, first and foremost. They're ready for you to leave, actually. And I've not heard anybody on Fox talk about the appalling behavior of the media when it came to intruding in Newtown, Connecticut, much less the focus on the killer, much less the, do I even need to say any more than Piers Morgan? I could go on and on and on and on. And I've seen no self-reflection. I've seen no self-criticism from the media. And they have done an awful job as reporters, as pundits, across the board. It's been pretty awful. And yet, it's pat on the back time. All right, we've got one more of these for you because clearly I'm a glutton for punishment and just can't get enough of this stuff. Stick around, and we'll have more from Fox and Friends.